We now shift our focus to the various components of agroecological practice. I'm Marika.
I'm Flo.
And I'm Nick.
Today we will help unpack these topics for you. Of course, there are many components to consider that vary widely across contexts and depend on which group you consult. For example, the UN's Food and Agricultural Organization diverges from the 9 Lenny principles, and they identify their own 10 components of agroecology, including diversities, synergies, and recycling. However, in the Netherlands, we found that the 3 components, food sovereignty, land access, and market and income issues, are especially relevant and interesting to unpack. So we explore in this segment to what degree sustainable farmers in the Netherlands relate to these issues and how they are tackling them in practice. We'll start with food sovereignty.
As defined by Boerengroep, food sovereignty is the right of food producers and consumers to control and own the means of producing, exchanging, and consuming culturally appropriate and local food. This can be expressed in a variety of ways and naturally looks different across different territories. With this in mind, we wondered whether the notion of food sovereignty are motivating Dutch organic agriculture in practice. Farmer Tjitske run Herenboerengoedentijd near Tilburg. In the unique Herenboeren model, approximately 250 households employ her to manage the farm and coordinate weekly produce pickups for the members. Tjitske told us that the movement towards small-scale diverse farming is actually a return to the historic use of land. If you go back 100 years or so, you would likely see farms that were home to a far greater diversity of produce than has been the case in the intervening years.
The grandfather of Gina had a farm here that actually resembled a herenboerderij. In that time, farms were diverse. He had pigs that actually, Gina called that field the pig field. Yeah, big field. That used to be her pig field. And there was fruit trees all around, a fruit orchard. They had cows. They had some vegetables that they provided to the neighbors. And some big scale maize and grains. And then after the war and there was a food shortage in the war, never hunger again, they all said. And then they specialized to cattle. And then the orchard went away, and finally the pigs went away, and they only kept the cattle for the dairy.
The inauguration of Herenboerengoedentijd in 2020 thus works to return consumers to diversity on their local soils, and in the process work towards collectivizing and improving the sovereignty of local food production. Rob and Charlie are farmers at Eikemaheerd, a CSA farm in Loppersum. In speaking with them, they highlighted the importance of transparency and fair pricing to the food sovereignty movement. The current national, or rather international, focus on food security actually exacerbates existing problems and only takes more and more control away from farmers themselves. Rob and Charlie wants farming to be more democratic and accessible, creating transparency in the chain and looking past food security towards food sovereignty.
In the Netherlands, we talk about food security, which is based on a very gatekeeped, patented industry, and it has the potential to produce enough food for everyone, but only if you pay for it, and only under the circumstances that they feel comfortable sharing it. So, and I think if we want to have I think it has to do with democracy. Yeah. You know, the democratic food system allows people to participate in it in an active way and not just as a consumer.
Yeah, and I think the accessibility of land and also where you get your seeds from and the transparency and the whole chain is also part of it.
With their farming model, their community knows exactly what they're paying for and what they are eating. Their farm implements social pricing for their members so that local quality produce is easily accessible to the wider public while also ensuring fair compensation for the farmers. From these models, more resilient farming can emerge, with people coming back to the land, interacting with each other, producing stronger sense of community and knowing how their food is produced. The system can be reproduced, ensuring food for future generations.
I think knowledge is a big part of food sovereignty.
Yeah.
And also, there's so many. We've been living like an agricultural life as humans for 10,000 years, and there's so much knowledge developed of how we can sustain each other. And the whole idea that now we're depending on just a bunch of multinational companies to secure us our food is of course ridiculous. There is enough knowledge locally everywhere to maintain communities.
However, land access remains another obstacle in ensuring food sovereignty.
In the Netherlands, unconventional farmers often find it really difficult to access land. For decades, policies have been pushing for further industrialization of agriculture, causing a high percentage of farmland to be consolidated into very few hands and reducing the possibility of entry for non-incumbent farmers. Low supply of available land has caused land prices to skyrocket. According to the Netherlands Scientific Climate Council, between 2000 and 2023, there was a 47% decrease in total agricultural land in the country. This occurred simultaneously with a 76% rise in the average size of Dutch farms, primarily due to the buying up of agricultural land by large farms or agro-industrial companies. Chetska also notes that another major barrier is that most agricultural land remains in the hands of incumbent families through generations of inheritance.
The problem in the Netherlands, especially for organic farmers, like the regular farmers, that's a bit of an in-crowd. Land comes and goes from families, or you sell it to the neighbors, and it's in that inner circle. And if you want to go into that circle, it's pretty difficult.
We find that farms operating outside of the conventional model sometimes need to be creative in acquiring land. For example, Herreboeren Goede Tijden works with a model that allows families to collectively purchase land. This particular farm was fortunately able to buy property that had been seized from a dairy farm by the gemeente. But despite the success of Goede Tijden, many herreboeren throughout the Netherlands have difficulty finding land, even if they have established a community eager to finance it. Right now, there are more than 25 herreboeren groups, totaling several thousand members, that have been struggling to find suitable land to begin their farming. One organization that tries to reduce financial barriers to entry is Land van Ons. As a cooperative, members of Land van Ons contribute money to a pool that finances the purchasing of a plot of land, which is then leased below market price to a local organic farmer. Today, over 30,000 participants own 4 million square meters of organic agricultural land. Alternatively, Rob and Chris from Agroecology take another approach by renting land within a larger farm. This can also be a good option for smallholder farms. While searching for land, they emphasize the importance of building networks and connecting with incumbent farmers for small plots on the land. They also say that sometimes the local municipality will actually provide land that can be used for plant production.
But acquiring land is, in many ways, only the beginning of the struggle. The next question becomes how to develop an economic model capable of ensuring the survival of the farm in a country where more and more small farms seem to be disappearing every day due to market pressures. In large-scale farming, state subsidies and economies of scale lower costs, leading to lower market prices. How can a small, independent farm compete? Or is that perhaps the wrong question to be asking? Herreboeren Goede Tijden and Agroecology provide two examples of how some farmers are essentially bypassing the market completely by utilizing unconventional economic models. We have already mentioned how Goede Tijden is essentially a cooperative enterprise between 250 families and a farmer. This distributes financial risk and provides food directly to members based on a democratic model of decision-making.
Organic agriculture is hard to make money in. And Herreboeren has thought of the concept that 200 households pay a certain amount of money they use to invest in the farm, and then every household pays a contribution per month for how many mouths they want to feed. And some people say, oh, if I see how many vegetables I get for that amount and I go to Ecoplaza and count it out, it's about the same. Some say it doesn't, but that's how they feel about it. I think it's pretty expensive, and it's only because of these fortunate people we can exist.
At Agroecology, consumers do not necessarily own the farm in quite the same way. Instead, they take out annual subscriptions and then receive regular packages of produce. However, the basic premise is the same. The farmers no longer have to rely on middlemen to provide food to people, and they are provided a certain level of security through the support of their community and their distance from the volatility of traditional markets. Here's Rob again.
We create our own market.
Yeah.
we only grow what we know that we can sell. And the prices of our crops are not influenced by a global market.
No.
The only way they're influenced is positive. Because if we don't grow like the winter carrots, and then if everyone has a really good winter carrot year, the prices are cheap, and we buy them from Jochem. I mean, we're not gonna. But then he has to deal with the prices of all the carrot farmers, and we don't. We already know what we're gonna get. Everyone's paying for the service of getting it into a bag, and not for the specific crop. So we're sort of bypassing the global market in that sense.
But, as Chetska noted earlier, the prices that both farms have to charge are unfortunately higher than those found at your average supermarket, meaning that there's a certain barrier to entry for people who might be interested but cannot necessarily afford to pay what's being asked. Rob and Charlie also point out, however, that the low price of industrially grown produce is artificial, in the sense that it actually masks the true cost of production, including labor as well as environmental impacts. Though much progress is being made in diagnosing the flaws inherent to current mainstream agricultural models and the potential to combat these through alternative practices, there remains much work to be done. Agroecology resists simplification and commodification through its very definition, but this has not prevented attempts to co-opt the term and its various components by the very system it seeks to resist.